Hello, my name is Ray Salazar, and this is Morning Real, a 3 to 4 to 100 minute or so podcast of films I review from all nations, of all kinds, individual, whatever color, it doesn't matter, whatever nation, it doesn't matter. I review them. Today, I am reviewing my first M. Night Shyamalan film. It's called Old. Ooh. It's a 2021 American horror thriller film written, directed, and produced by M. Night Shyamalan. Crazy. A horror thriller. It's a horror thriller for sure. I haven't seen the M. Night Shyamalan film in a long time. It's been forever. Honestly, the last film that I actually went to go see at a theater, or rather sit down and watch it on the television screen, was probably The Village. Man, remember that film? Yeah, I avoided that guy. He has a style. He definitely has a tone. He has a way of presenting a story, and he definitely likes science fiction. He definitely likes slow burner films. He really does like to make the audience think a little bit. He does. I like that he doesn't spoon feed people. Remember the last Airbender? Man, dude. Yeah, see, I don't think I ever saw the last Airbender. The Happening? God, man. But you know what? I sat down. They say it's cool. I was like, all right, let's watch it. And you know what? I actually enjoyed watching this film. I think this film is it's pretty good. It's not the best, it's not great, but it's good. It's interesting. It's not boring. You're trying to figure out what the hell's going on with these people in this island, where it's mostly for adults, or just mostly for people who are these people are selected. This film is about these people who are selected, right? Whether you're a family or not, they're selected. They're invited to this island within the like this part of the island, right? They're like, hey man, come with me. I got a place for you guys where you will bother nobody and nobody will bother you. Great. I mean, obviously in an M. Night Shyamalan film, it's already fucked up. It's already like, all right, what's gonna happen now? See, and that's the thing I don't like about M. Night Shyamalan. Like, you kind of know where it's going somewhat, but then again, once you're there, you don't really know what's going on. But I mean, the title of the film, the artwork, it kind of says it all, and that kind of, But then again, it's not what it's about. It's about how it's about, and how he did it was pretty good. This island or this part of the island, speeds up time, at a very crazy rate. And the people who are there, it's crazy how these even characters exist in the film. And I like how M. Night Shyamalan wrote these characters to be not. I mean, they're relatable to us, the audience, and they're relatable to each other. And it's a very diverse cast too, which he did a pretty good job at like making that happen. So let me go with this credits real quick. Here we go. Screenplay, direction, and production by M. Night Shyamalan, based on Sandcastle. So it's an adaptation by Pierre Oscar Levy and Frederick Peters. Other people who produced it: Mark Beinstock and Ashwin Rajan. Starring, it's a big cast too: Gail Garcia Bernal, Vicky Creeps, Rufus Sewell, Alex Wolff, Thomasin McKenzie, Abby Lee, Nikki Amuka Bird, Ken Leung, Eliza Scallon, Aaron Pierre, and Beth Davids, and Eamon Elliott. Cinematography by Michael Giolakis. Edited by Brett M. Reed. Music by Trevor Gurekis. Production companies Perfect World Pictures and Blinding Edge Pictures. Distributed by Universal Pictures. Woo. This film came out in 2021. So, a couple of years ago. Budget of 18 million, made 90.2 million in the box office. A success. Good job, man. Yeah, this is a big cast, man, and they're all relatable to each other. They each have their own problems, their own struggles, their own thing, which is great because we're trying to figure out, well, all these people, how are we all gonna figure it out? Eventually they figure it out. Eventually they figure out what's up at the island. It's funny because they got kids in this movie, and as they're growing up, the kids are growing up. But as these people are growing up, their mentality sort of stays the same or has a long time to catch up within itself, right? And then there's a twist. Obviously, M. Night Shyamalan, he's known for his twists. And it's a pretty good twist as to what happens in the third act, right? Because in the third act is where everything comes down, everything kind of like gets revisited and concludes the film. I am not gonna spoil the third act. In fact, yeah, it would be wrong of me to try to spoil the third act for you, but it kind of makes sense as to what he wanted to do. And I mean, he's in the film itself, man. M. Night Shyamalan is the driver of the van who takes these guests to that uninhibited part of the island, the edge of it, where the ocean's at. And I do love the fact that he is in his own movies. I think it's great. I think almost every director should have at least a cameo of sorts. And you know what? He makes it work because there's some directors who not star in their own films, but do cameos in their own films, and you can tell it's very pretentious, and you can just tell, it's like you wish they did a better job writing themselves in the scene, right? But then again, who's to say they didn't do a good job writing themselves in the scene? But in M. Night Shyamalan's case, he did pretty good playing, a driver, but like, obviously there are some intentions with that, and they're not fairly positive. And this film does a pretty good job at trying to not attack our morals, but they do ask ourselves, how are we doing in our lives? Are we doing the right thing? Because time slips away, it moves forward. You can never go backwards. So if you have issues or problems and they're like a ball and chain to you, like it's gonna be tough to progress and develop as a person. And not that any of these people had any like serious problems, but it's crazy how these we can like foresee these problems. We can see somebody who eventually develops a form of Alzheimer's or dementia. We see people who, they have a calcium deficiency, and as they grow up and they don't treat themselves, it's so fucked up how they actually turned out because they don't get that treatment. And again, this island is just moving and moving, going faster, and it's suspenseful. It really is suspenseful because time's running out, and we only have 2 hours to watch. And what's great about this film too, now I can say it's great, right? But the great part of this film is the fact that it doesn't move like how time moves. Like if we're watching a 2 hour film, these people have 2 hours to figure out what they're talking about. These people have like a whole day, because I think out of that whole day or two, you get older, and once you get like, say you're in the island, and you're already old as fuck. You're like 70 years old, and they take you to this part of the island, and time ramps up in this part of the island. You'll be dead in the day. Every complications that you have will just be gone. My favorite scene is obviously the scene where there's a baby. That's all I'm gonna say, and the baby dies. Now it's not hilarious, but the absurdity of the plot, like, and I'm not talking about like in a bad way, the absurdity, like how when the baby is born, you gotta nurture it as soon as it's born, right? I'm assuming, and that I can't spoil it, but a baby dies because of I can't say it, I can't ruin it, I won't, because if you haven't seen the film, when you watch it, you'll see it. And you know what? I'm gonna recommend you guys to watch this film. You guys and gals and them to watch this film. Watch it. I'm gonna give it 3 out of 4 tokes. It deserves it. It's not a boring film. It's pretty entertaining. Um, Problems. Not so much problems. I think it's just kind of hard to have a cast where they each have to share dialogue, and it's hard to like make two out of those cast members like the top of the list as far as like Gael, like he's a big name, right? He gets a lot of dialogue, and he has to share that dialogue with his wife, who's also another great actress in this film. And it's kind of hard to juggle the dialogue and all that stuff. Story wise, it's very basic. There's no like explosions and all that stuff. And they're really trying to figure out how to get out of this island, and they're figuring it out as they go, and that's great. And all these personalities, all these like pieces of intelligence that kind of work, that should work in their favor, but Yeah, man. I just wish there was like a little bit more because we don't really get to find out exactly why this part of the island is the way it is, but we do discover why they're there and what comes about it, because there's got to be something to deliver, right? But then all that is explained just like towards the end of the third act, not necessarily like at the beginning of the third act. And I kind of, eh, it's just one of those M. Night Shyamalan films where you just got to stick through it. You just have to stick through it all the way to the end because there is a payoff. M. Night Shyamalan is a lot like that. He wants you to stick around, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Did it work for me? A little bit. Would I watch this film again? To be honest, yeah, because some of the dialogue in this film is pretty good. Some of the situations that he created is not bad. I enjoyed it. Cinematography is pretty good. We get to see different perspectives. We get to see how M. Night Shyamalan works when it comes to close-ups. How these actors are presented on screen, and it makes sense the way I see certain shots. Where like it's a close-up, but obviously they're not looking at us because they're not supposed to, but their faces are kind of turned away, so we don't get to see the character as much. And I like how he tries to get us to relate to the characters on screen. Like Al's, like what he's got going on is, he has vision problems, so we get to see a point of view of him, and we get to see his blurriness, what he has to deal with, and it sucks. And we relate to that, whether one of us are blind or not, or legally blind or whatever. We get to see that, and we get to try to understand. And that's the whole thing about filmmaking, is the fact that they gotta grab us because not only do we pay attention, but at the same time, we start caring. My name is Ray Salazar. Follow me on Morning Shot Films on IG and YouTube. Check out my website, morningshotfilms.co. I've seen a lot of films as of recent. Next week, I will be putting out the film I Love You, Man. And I actually recorded that review with XG of the famous Tinfoil Hat podcast, the famous George Perez Stories podcast, and of course, We Don't Smoke the Same podcast. It's going to be a good one. It's a bromance film. It's one of the last bromance films of the certain era where you see all the Judd Apatow fools, working with each other and, we're trying to catch up with them. It's crazy when you see those films, especially because they were filmed like more than 10 years ago now. You get to see them grow up. You get to see what kind of films they're in and how they apply to their own lives. Like, you're not always going to see fucking Seth Rogen playing a dude who has a lame ass job or has like an easy ass job. Eventually, when these actors grow up, they got to get roles that kind of pertain what's going on as their age group, puts them in. So right now, eventually, Seth Rogen should be doing movies of fatherly roles or being an exec or, shit like that. So, yeah, check it out. Thank you.